Anyone who hangs with us has to spend a night alone in the place next door. It's haunted.
You're right. There is a ghost around here. It's you.
It's true. I am a ghost, and I'm alone.
And she didn't escape alive.
I know I came back, not to be throwing mailbags around or scaring people. Came back to save Danny's life.
I didn't know you were here.
Welcome to Splat Attack, a podcast honoring the slime-filled past. I'm your transparent spookster, Alex, and... Anyone? Cat? Manny? Oh, that's right. They're still working on fixing the damages to the studio. Jordy? He's looking for the missing letters to our sign. Last episode, my guests left me here all alone. It's kind of spooky here all by myself. I don't know how I can do this episode all alone.
Alex.
Don't do that to me.
Your team said you needed help with this Versus episode, so I'm here to help out.
That's right.
Oh, gosh. Stop it.
It's just us. Don't freak out. We just didn't want to leave you all alone. You know, we know it can be big and kind of lonely in this big studio with nobody around you.
In the dark.
Anything could happen.
You guys freaking scared the life out of me. All right. Now, for all of you slimesters out there, these two frightful friends of mine, this is Joe Gilpatrick and Kevin Roach, both of whom have been on the show before, but they've not been on our main timeline before. Joe has actually been featured twice because he's been on a couple of our Game On episodes where we did Finders Keepers and the TV Land Classics board game, which was a lot of fun. And Kevin was on one of our Patreon episodes where we did Tale of the Curious Camera against Say Cheese and Die, which was a lot of fun. And I'm really excited to have these guys now that I know they're here and I'm not having to do this show by myself. So thank you guys for coming out and help out with this episode.
No problem.
Our pleasure. Yeah, I mean, we're fine with it. We're cool.
Well,
if you hear ghoulish like moaning, it's just my pit bull on the other side of the door crying because she's not in my shadow right now.
Don't worry, guys. I'm never alone. Alexa, set closet to red. Oh no, I am alone because she's not listening.
You want to try that again?
Alexa, set closet to red. There
it goes.
Ooh.
Nice. Well, before we really get into the episode, and this is a question I know we had asked Kevin before on our episode with you, but again, this is for YouTube, so everyone gets to see this. So I'm going to ask both of you, what has been your experience, and what do you remember most about Are You Afraid of the Dark and from Goosebumps?
I was going to say, Are You Afraid of the Dark solidified many fears that I still have, like swimming pools that are only like half filled and have tarps on them, or clowns. I'm not afraid of clowns, but if they're behind mirrors in fun houses, not so much. You know, like they're just like weird little things that I'm like, I don't empty malls because, you know, a giant pinball might come down an escalator. Who knows?
But you get wicked awesome super soakers with that, though.
I know, and you save the princess over and over and over
until he dies.
Yeah. But
it's purgatory. Yeah. Got it.
There were a lot of unhappy endings in Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I was really surprised going through and watching it again how many of them were actually genuinely good, happy endings. I thought most of them would be really downer endings, but there's far fewer than I was expecting. But did you talk about Goosebumps?
I didn't talk about Goosebumps, no. I was an avid Goosebumps book reader, but Goosebumps to me was more kind of the fun side of things. Like it was like if you wanted to have like a fun scare, watch Goosebumps. If you wanted to be legitimately kind of creeped out, watch Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Mhm.
Of course, I grew up in that era of like Goosebumps and Fear Street, and it's like I always explain to people, if you were, I mean, granted, a little above me, but if you were a teenager, you know, you graduated from Goosebumps to Fear Street. But if you were like hardcore, you graduated to Christopher Pike, who wasn't afraid to have like kids doing drugs and things. He didn't glorify it, but like wasn't afraid to show it.
Joe, what about you? What's your experience with Are You Afraid of the Dark and with Goosebumps?
They are both so severely intertwined with my childhood. Um, growing up, like, watching a lot of Nickelodeon throughout the week, Are You Afraid of the Dark was a huge staple. I've always been into spooky, creepy things my entire life. And so that show was just like, even though like it scared the living shit out of me sometimes, it like it was just like a natural fit for me. And like Kevin, I was more of the Goosebump books, but I did watch the show occasionally on Saturday mornings on Fox Kids every once in a while. But I was a bigger fan of Are You Afraid of the Dark? But I love both. They're both. I mean, like Goosebumps. I think about that awesome artwork on all the novels, all the books, and then with Are You Afraid of the Dark? I always think about that awesome because I always said the creepiest thing about Are You Afraid of the Dark is the opening theme song with all of the spooky imagery. I mean, because like even like the little shot of the swing set swinging with the leaves flowing underneath it, like in the middle of the night, that creeped me out. That kind of made me scared of my part growing up. Almost, it was kind of weird how much of an effect it had on me.
I
And
literally watched an episode the other night, and like I'm in bed and it's late at night, and the theme started. And I'm like, nope, skip.
yep, because the part that still to this day creeps me out is when it peers up to the attic and you hear the children laughing where children should not be laughing, and that's one of my biggest fears is hearing that sound in a place where it shouldn't be. Kevin and I actually had a conversation recently about this where we're talking about the difference between Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark. If you wanted to like condense it to like more of like an adult view of it, Goosebumps is like if you want like a Sam Raimi horror film, like Drag Me to Hell or the first Evil Dead or even the second Evil Dead, where you want like that campy, like there's some spook factor, but it's more like, okay, I can laugh at this, have a good time with this. And Are You Afraid of the Dark is like if you want some John Carpenter, Wes Craven kind of thing in your life.
That's a very accurate description. I love that, and I think it's so funny. I've said it before in our previous Are You Afraid of the Dark Goosebumps verses, but if this is your first time listening, I was a frightful kid. I was terrified of Are You Afraid of the Dark as a kid, and I couldn't watch it. I saw Zebo make an appearance, and then I changed the channel, and I never went back.
He's in it for like a fraction of a second, like the
I know.
real Zebo. Like, and
Yeah.
that bothered. I was like, Funhouses never again.
And then I was done. It was too much for me, and I never did go back and watch Are You Afraid of the Dark until I think I watched one episode, and it was Tale of the Curious Camera. But after that, I couldn't watch anymore. But Goosebumps, I could watch Goosebumps. Scary things always intrigued me, but I was always too frightened to actually stick with it. And I lived in a very conservative home where my mom would not let me watch scary movies. She wouldn't let me put up really big spooky things for Halloween, even though I really wanted to. And I was not allowed to check out Goosebumps books from the library or buy them at the Scholastic Book Fair. All I could do was just look at the cover and then sit with my friends on the school bus and ask them, "Okay, tell me about the story." And that was my exposure to it. And then they started playing Goosebumps on Saturday mornings, and much like Joe had said, that's when I got to check out. And I could take Goosebumps. I'd have to do it when my mom wasn't watching, but I could take Goosebumps. But Are You Afraid of the Dark was a big no for me. But as an adult, I went back and watched Are You Afraid of the Dark. And yeah, John Carpenter, very, very much John Carpenter for like 95% of the show. And I absolutely love it because John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors. Um, and then I went back to watch Goosebumps. I was like, this is silly. I didn't I didn't realize how silly this show was.
I was gonna say, it didn't help that like a bunch of the like big special episodes were like R.L. Stein being like, "Oh hey there, spooky kid fans. Hope you're ready to be frightened to your core."
How do you get out of here? Can somebody show me the way out? How do we get out? Really, somebody help me. Let me out. Let me out of here.
He looks like a substitute teacher who kicked caffeine as a drinking Sanka now. He's like, oh hi, viewers beware, guys.
Bueller.
Oh my gosh.
Bueller.
But like, I will say, like the ones that they pumped the hardest for like home video release, like Night in Terror Tower, my personal favorite, The Haunted Mask. Those are like really good quality episodes. Werewolf of Fever Swamp, really good solid episodes. And then like, but my favorite book of the book series was Vampire's Breath, and I was so let down of how overly campy the episode was in the series because I loved the book so much. Because the book had a good like spook factor to it that I really enjoyed over the other ones.
I think I felt that way about the about Welcome to Dead House, the original Goosebumps book, and then I watched the episode and I was like, this is not nearly as dark. Because I mean, it's been a long time since I've read the book. I'd have to like go back and revisit it. But if I'm not mistaken, it definitely has a whole, you know, Fright Night vibe where like, it's okay, we'll go inside the neighbor's house, and then the end. But
and then the TV show, it's like a retelling of Troll 2.
Oh my god.
Oh my god! I mean, it really is. They're like, all the spooky zombie neighbors are like, they know we're zombies. We got to get after them.
Well, for this episode, as if you couldn't tell by all the ghosts behind me, and we are going to be pairing two ghost episodes against each other. We are going to be looking at Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of the Lonely Ghost, which Joe, who's very close to the camera, is going to be defending for us tonight. And Kevin is going to be defending the Goosebumps episode, The Ghost Next Door, parts 1 and 2. And for our basic episode info, Tale of the Lonely Ghost is from season 1, episode 3, was written by Naomi Jansen. I hope I pronounced that right. You guys know how great I am with names. Directed by the man himself, DJ McHale, and it was air date was August 29th, 1992. Anybody feel old yet? For Goosebumps, this was season 4, episodes 3 and 4. They came out back to back, like in the same day within the block of Fox Kids. Was written by Neil Shusterman and directed by Don McCutcheon. And the air date was September 28th, 1998. And before we really get into the details of it, we've officially got to get this versus episode going on. So let's get it on. All right, so for this episode, we are looking at 5 categories. As always, we are looking at story. Our second category is main characters. The 2 specific to this episode, we are looking at ghost characters and use of relationships, because there's quite a bit of really big, heavy hitter moments for both of these episodes. And then finally, our usual lasting appeal. So we are going to start with The Tale of the Lonely Ghost, and we are going to start with story. So I love hearing Joe tell stories because they are always unconventional. So Joe, tell us a brief synopsis of The Tale of the Lonely Ghost.
Okay, so Tale of the Lonely Ghost submitted for your approval.
Grown.
Shut up, Kevin. So we have Amanda, and she's spending the summer with her Aunt Dottie and cousin Beth because her parents are scientists and they're going to study rocks for 3 months in the northern part of their country, which we all know is filmed in Canada, but they make it feel like it's in the U.S., so who's to say? I mean, it could be the tundra terrain. It could be Maine. We don't know. So here's just my notes on some of the characters and the actors portraying them. Aunt Dottie is 2 things I love a lot. She is overacting and she is super Canadian, don't you know?
I wish it would just... Sometimes I think this house just doesn't want to be sold.
Don't even get me started. I've got a whole bunch in Canada.
So, yeah, we all... Yeah. Anyway, we love you, Canada. You're just too nice.
Good, I don't.
I don't trust him. That's
It's
why
all
they're
about
too nice.
it's all
I don't
about
trust him.
acting. It has to do with acting. I promise.
But yeah, Aunt Dottie, super Canadian, very big on her acting choices. Constantly has to keep readjusting Amanda's shirt the first 3 minutes she's on the camera. She's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna be rooming with your cousin Beth," and Beth just hits like that. I don't know what it was in the '90s with TV shows and movies, but like they had to make every redhead like just a super.
BITCH.
Well, I think we're all a little too old to be spelling things out.
A bitka?
Like it was that way in Clueless. It was that way in a couple other TV shows. And
15.
yeah, exactly, 15. The only one that didn't have that trope was Babysitter's Club. But Beth's super overactor as well. And she's like, if you want to hang out with me at all this summer, I got 3 rules. 1, everything you touch in my room goes back to its original spot. 2, no snitching, because snitches get stitches. And then 3, she's like, hey, if you want to hang out with me and my friends, you got to stay one night in the haunted house across the street that my mom, who's a real estate agent, can't sell because it's so haunted. Whoa! So Amanda, she takes up the dare to stay in the house for one night, and she gets in there and she sees the words "help me" written backwards on the wall. And whenever she looks in the mirror, it obviously says "help me," like Neil Bogg spelt backwards is goblin.
It's goblin. It's just goblin spelled
backwards.
Neil Bogg! It's goblin spelled backwards!
And all of a sudden, you know, that wonderful 90s special effects in the mirror, and the little girl, the ghost of the little girl appears doing these numbers because she can't speak. So the story behind that was the girl who used
you should cover that because that's kind of important.
Kevin, we're getting there, okay? We're getting there. Unconventional. So we're going to Tarantino this, rewind. Back years ago, the family who lived in this house, the little girl, she couldn't speak. Maybe she was deaf. We don't know, Jill. She just couldn't speak, okay? Real argument that happened on the show, by the way.
I don't know. She just couldn't.
Maybe she was deaf.
It doesn't matter. Just listen.
Sorry.
Her father was in the war, and he got sick. So her mother had to leave and take care of him. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like,
huh?
So I'm assuming he's overseas. So mom is just going to hop on the shuttle, go across the ocean, and tend to his wounds when you have an entire VA hospital set up on site? Not my ghost story. I don't know. And then she says, so the mother left, and then the little girl had to go stay with her grandmother. And on her way there, some bullies found her, and they made fun of her for not talking. So they chased her back to her house, and she locked herself in the room, and she couldn't get back out. And no one knew she was there for weeks, and she died. And the worst part is her grandmother didn't even know she was coming. And I'm like, you know what? A phone call letter could have fixed all this stuff in the first place if her mother would have planned ahead. Like, hey, honey, your dad got injured in the European theater. I got to go across the pond to tend to him. You're going to go to grandma's 5 minutes down the road, but I'm not going to tell her. Amanda runs across the street, gets to her house. She snitches, which is rule number 2. You never snitch in that house. Tells Aunt Dottie everything. Aunt Dottie's all pissed off. So she makes both Amanda and Beth go to the house by themselves in the morning to wash the words off the wall. Here's the kicker. They get into the room, and "help me" is written backwards all over the wall. These girls just like, oh my God, we got to clean all this? I can't believe you wrote on this on the wall. I didn't, you did. I didn't, you did. The mirror does a little wavy thing again, and it shows the room how it once was, full of stuffed animals and dolls. It was a little girl's room. Who would have thought? And Beth, being the ultra popular redhead, like, oh my God, it looks like my collection of stuffed animals. And I'm like, you're 14. I'm like, you're 14 and you're the Regina George of your group, but that's how you're popular?
She loved her dolls.
So she just does the slow motion, reaches her hand through the mirror. It goes through, so the rest of her goes through. And then she's like, oh my God, Amanda, I'm stuck. Amanda show. So the little girl appears. She walks through the mirror, and Amanda's like, oh my God, get me out of here. Get me out of here. And the little girl's like, no, help me. I forgot another part. Why'd you have me do this?
You're like the guy that tells the joke and you're like, oh, wait, I forgot this part. It makes it really funny.
One part I left out. There's an old lady named Nanny who lived with Beth and her mother, Dottie. Nanny is still a nanny to Beth, and she's like, I'm 14. I don't need a nanny, but yet you need stuffed animals. Okay, stay consistent with me, Beth. Stay consistent. So she hates Nanny, belittles her all the time. And just so happens, she realizes whenever the little girl comes out of the mirror, Amanda's like, oh my God, how can I help you? And the little girl holds up half a locket, and it's a younger version of Nanny. So then she's like, oh my God, that's Nanny. She's your mom. And the girl's over here all like, she doesn't speak, as we talked about before. She's like, well, I want to get her. I want to help you. But she runs across the street. I got to break this down for you because it made me shake my head. She runs through the front yard, through the front door, checks the kitchen, runs up the stairs. Nanny's not around. She goes to Nanny's room. Nanny's not there. But she looks out the window, and through the same front yard that she just ran through, there is a taxi. And Nanny walking out there with 2 suitcases. I'm like, how did you not cross paths? This is not a big house.
Nanny went through the back door.
Oh, no. I refuse to believe that. She runs out there, and she's like, Nanny, don't go. As she's putting her suitcases in the trunk. I make a point of this later. She's putting the suitcases in the trunk, and the cabbie's just standing there. And she's like, Nanny, I need you to come with me. And she's like, oh no, I'm not wanted here anymore. Like, this is the day you decide just to leave on a whim in the middle of your shift. Not professional on Nanny's part. So she's like, Nanny, no, look. And she holds up the locket and pairs it next to the other half of the locket that's hanging off Nanny. And she's like, where'd you get this? And she's like, in the house. No, I can't go back in there. Too many bad memories. Come with me. She drags this old broad into the house. And she's like, I didn't want to go up there. She's like, we got to go up there. They get up there, and she sees her about 40-year-old dead little girl daughter who she hadn't seen since World War II. And Kevin's giving me looks right now, and that's okay.
I'm sorry. I thought you were just trying to say Nanny was 40 years old. I'm like, excuse you.
No. The daughter is 40 years old, but she's a ghostly little girl. Shut up, Kevin. Anyway. And she's like, oh my God, my daughter, is that you? And of course, she still can't talk, even with ghost power. So she's just like, and they hug like a 3-year-old would with you, grabs her hand and points at the mirror. And she goes, you want me to go with you? Okay, I'll go with you. And they go into the mirror. And a little bit tilt to the camera, Amanda's looking through, and there is Nanny, 40 years younger-ish. And there's the little girl, dressed up a little bit better, like an American Girl doll. And they hug, and they go through the bedroom door inside the mirror world. And there's Beth being like, Amanda, I'm still stuck in here. And about that time, unbeknownst to them, a Beth's little group of plastics just shows up in there, and they're like, what's going on, guys? We got the message to show up and meet at this creepy old house that we're all afraid of. What's going on? The mirror goes back to normal, and you can obviously hear Beth is just inside the closet. I'm not sure if that's a metaphor or not. She's in the closet, she's like, help me get out. And Amanda's like, you promise not to be mean to me anymore? And Beth's like, I promise. She goes, you promise not to be mean to your friends anymore? She's like, I promise. She goes, okay, I guess I'll let you out. Opens the door. She falls out of the closet like Anne Heche in the 90s. And they're all like, ha ha, ha ha. Hard cut back to the campfire. And they're like, the end. Like, so what happened with Amanda? She had the best summer ever. She even let Beth hang out with her friends.
It was a good cheese.
Yes. But the point I was going to bring up earlier, the suitcases are in the taxi. This old broad goes upstairs, falls into a mirror world, leaving behind our reality, and that poor cabbie is just sitting out there with her in his trunk, and he's just sitting there going, is she ever coming back? No one told the cabbie. He's the real victim in this whole story.
She's happy wherever she's at. It's like,
okay, sure.
Why is Kevin defending your episode?
Probably because I'm tearing it to pieces. This is the hard one to defend, Alex. This is a hard one to defend.
And I actually liked that episode, so buckle up. I'm not done with mine yet.
No, it's okay. Because here's the thing.
This is not going the way Alex planned.
No, that's fine. I love it.
He invited us. That was his first mistake.
Oh no,
So
that wasn't a mistake at all.
At first, I was super pissed because I'm like, I get 20 minutes. Kevin gets 40 minutes of an episode. Kevin's episode, even in the first half, got about, I don't know, it had much more established relationships than mine did in the entire 20-minute run, which is kind of, for an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, it hits most of the marks, like the cinematography style, the directing style, it's all pretty on par with the rest of them. The story's good. It's not a bad story. To me, it just felt kind of rushed.
I was actually going to ask one of my questions that I was going to ask you, and I'll ask Kevin the opposite. But if you could write this out to be a two-parter, what changes would you make?
I would flesh out the relationships a little bit better between Amanda and her family, just because it just felt really abrupt. It just like it's kind of like threw you in the deep end pretty quick on it. I just would have done that, and then I would have done much more of a slow build towards the reveal of the ghost. That's how I would have spaced it out a little bit more.
Maybe not have Nanny, maybe give Nanny some dialogue about her past instead of just having her being like all the time, because like all the time.
That was all of her dialogue was.
Do something! Do something! Do something!
She needed something. They didn't give that poor woman anything. Amanda was kind of bland, not gonna lie, in her acting.
I don't think she means for you to hang with just me. We could do stuff with your friends.
But she got really hot when she got older. What?
Well, we'll get to them in just a bit, because we'll talk about main characters and we'll talk about Amanda. But as for the Ghost Next Door, because Kevin also is a wonderful storyteller.
Not as good as that. But
Oh no, two very different styles. Like we will be outside. We'll have we'll do a play, and then we all somehow manage to get together after a show, and then we'll be in the parking lot well after the restaurant has closed, and we're still sharing stories. And I'm just listening to the two of them, and their styles are very different. And
I'm pretty sure half of your audience has already turned off the video by now, but
no.
And see, and I'll be using my summary notes, but I'll be doing that thing where I'll be like, Hannah Fairchild was asleep in her bed. I have a real comfy bed. It's one that kind of raises up anyway. Until she smells smoke. I smelled smoke the other day. It was the strangest thing, and the smoke alarm didn't go off. Alarm, I need to change the batteries. Do you know Duracell lasts a lot longer than Energizer? Like,
is it gonna be like when John Malkovich read The Night Before Christmas on SNL?
I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. You know, in Portugal, they actually don't call him Saint Nick. His name is Pai Natal. And unless children leave him a stick of butter, he steals one of their toes.
So, Kevin, tell us about the Ghost Next Door.
But it opens up with this girl, Hannah Fairchild. She's asleep in her bed. We see some smoke kind of around. And then she wakes up and she's like, screaming. And the smoke's gone. And she's fine. That's not Chekhov's smoke. And she's fine. She's just like, oh no, it must have been a dream. Pulls out her laptop because it's the 90s. And she's writing a letter to her friend that, let's see, what is her friend? Her friend.
Equestrian camp.
Yeah, she's at camp or something like that, but she's writing a letter to a friend and she's like, I'm stuck at home and I'm sorry I can't be there because of my allergies. And the whole time I'm watching it going, does that laptop have a battery in it? Because it looks like the battery's missing. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. And she's like, I just feel like I'm stuck in the summer of the living dead. I'm giving her too much good acting credit.
I feel like I'm stuck in the summer of the living dead.
But then all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, she starts hearing the mysterious voice that sounded like my dad when he was trying to scare me, which is like, Hannah. She looks outside and she starts seeing this like shadowy shape moving around, and she is freaking out. And she's home alone. She runs downstairs and she's like, "Where are my parents?" And she finds a note and she's like, "Oh, it's like I'm an orphan or something."
Or something.
I'm gonna come back to that because it's gonna be funny in a minute, because it's gonna be funny. And she keeps seeing the shadow and she keeps hearing the mysterious voice that has like the rasp like I do, being like, but it also throws in the occasional and then what I thought was a potato, but is actually a rock, gets thrown through her window.
It was a potato too.
I was like, why would somebody throw a potato through a window? Like, is there a note
anything
inside? But she's calling 911, and the 911 operator is the worst 911 operator ever, because she gets out an entire monologue about how she's home alone and there's somebody outside. Doesn't even say it's a ghost, just like, I'm home alone. I think there's somebody outside my house. I'm hearing sounds. Please send somebody here. That whole monologue is like 30 seconds long. And then the operator is like, hello, 911.
Oh, hi. You've got to send somebody over here right away. There's something out there. You've got to send somebody over here right away. The address is 52 Cordina Way. It's the old Dawson house. You can't miss it. It's huge. Hello?
Hello? This is 911. Do you have an emergency? Hello? Hello? Is anyone on the line?
She thinks to finally like run outside, I guess, which told you I'd do this. When I was a kid, something similar happened where I thought somebody was trying to break into my house when I was home alone. Turns out the back storm door just swung open and closed really hard. And I was smart enough to run to my neighbors, and unless there was a killer outside, and then I would have been stabbed. But anyway.
You're like Drew Barrymore and Scream. Dad.
Dad. And she runs outside, and she keeps seeing shadowy figure, and all of a sudden like things start to get kind of weird, and the shadowy figure's like standing over her, and then all of a sudden it's like poof, it's a boy named Danny. Dun-dun. And he's like, it's just me, I'm not a shadowy figure. And he's talking about
which is what a shadowy figure would say.
Exactly, that's what I thought. I'm like, sure you aren't, which is why we're going to come back to this in a minute. And he's like, I just moved into this creepy house that you just mentioned earlier on your 911 call that's been, abandoned and nobody wants to go there. And he just moves the house. He wants to check out what she's looking at because he's like, I like scary things. And it's like, okay, what if he has an axe? Do you like that scary? But then he like continually tries to scare her when she's already scared. So it's like, oh, you're afraid somebody's trying to murder your family? Go! And then he's like, I don't know what you're on about. It's just that kite that's stuck up in the tree that has been there the whole time that we're just now putting in here because plot. A kite that looks nothing like a human being. and a kite that definitely when it rustles in the wind does not go Hannah. But anyway, he shows her the house and she's like, I don't believe it, like you can't live in there, it's all creepy looking, and nobody's lived in there. And he's like, nope, that's where we live, it's all good, dismisses the claim. And then they split and they go to their separate homes. The next morning, Hannah is back writing her friend, only this time her laptop is like plugged in to her friend Katie. And she's like, oh, I'm going to miss the mailman. I got to get this to the mailman. And she runs out and is like, mailman, and chases after him. And there's a group of boys on bicycles, including Danny, who mysteriously has his head down the whole time, that kind of dart out in front, but the other boys make it out in front of the mail truck in time. Danny almost does not, and she's like, Danny, watch out. And the truck almost hits him. Danny falls into a pile of trash, and he's like, oh man, I wasn't watching where I was going. And he gets on his bike, goes out, because the boys are like the most after school special bullies ever. Like, you'd do it if you were cool. There's one line specifically that I replayed like 3 different times because I was like, no teenage boy in the history of mankind has ever said something like this.
Okay, we decided to give you one more chance to prove yourself worthy of hanging out with us, the coolest guys in town.
But mysteriously enough, she looks on the ground where Danny fell, and there's like this like smoke, burnt out shadow on the ground, which retrospect I don't know ever gets explained, but whatever, it's creepy. And so Hannah decides she's going to go check out Danny's house, and but she runs into Danny, and he's like, "Whoa, no, you can't really come in here. I'm sorry," but he's like, "But I want to show you something. Why don't you come around back? I want to show you something behind the boathouse. I'll show you my dark secret." Anyway, whatever. Sorry. Toadies. Anyway. Okay. She goes back there. It's not a huge backyard at all. It's just a few trees and a yard, and then like the cellar door, which is open. One would assume Danny's down in the cellar. So she hears that voice being like, Hannah, and she's like, "Oh, Danny, you made your voice deep and you're trying to scare me again. I'm not going to get scared." She goes downstairs. The door slams behind her. "I'm not scared." I would be. I would be like, "Nope, we're going to open that just in case. Just keep that open." And the shadowy figure appears, and it really is like a shadowy figure, and it's like chasing her around. It's like an old NES game where you're in a maze and the shadow is like chasing you and you're trying to run around and you're. She ends up like escaping it, and I think at one point he even says, "There's no escape.
You'll never get away from me."
She runs out and Danny is like right outside, and it's like, "Where were you? I was totally over there in my tiny yard," which is suspicious. He's like, "Where were you?" And she's like, "I was down at the cellar." And she's like, and you are a ghost, obviously. Like, you disappeared, and then shadowy figure chased me, and there was a shadowy figure that turned into you earlier, and I'm going home. And she gets online. The only thing that I missed when she's searching the internet is I really wanted to hear that. But it's like a little text box about a house that was on fire that killed a family, but the article doesn't list names and strangely doesn't list an address. But it's like, we're not going to list names until the family has been notified.
Yeah, we saw this twist coming a mile away.
I'm going to come back to that. So the next day, the bully boys, the cyclists, they're like, "He's taking forever. Whatever, we're done with him. Let's go." And they leave. And so Hannah goes up to Danny's house, and a gust of wind magically, picks up and the door opens. And she calls out. Nobody answers. She goes in. The door, of course, slams behind her because, of course, it does. Nobody thinks I'm just going to open that. And then she sees Danny's mom inside preparing dinner, and there's like candles everywhere, and it's spooky, and it looks like something out of a tame Anne Rice novel. And she keeps trying to talk to her, and then she, like, for whatever reason, checks the stove, and the stove is cobwebs and spiders. And she's like, "Aha, that just proves my theory that this entire family is ghosts." And then Danny comes in, and she's like, "Aha, this just proves my theory that your entire family are ghosts."
That's all it took.
And he's like, "Or maybe we just moved in and we don't have electricity yet, and the stove hasn't been turned on, so that's why we need the candles." And he's like, "Oh, by the way, my mom is deaf. That's why she can't hear you." We're going to come back to that. And so Hannah leaves, and Danny follows, and Danny's like, "I'm sorry for not telling you. I was just kind of, moving in. I was embarrassed. My mom's deaf, and we communicate the sign language and lip reading and all that." And it's all embarrassing. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were a ghost. And then she leaves. And then but she has the article. Like, she's like, this is the thing I printed out. And like the camera, leaves and him like going, what? Looking at it. And so then he like runs to catch up to her. And he points out, he's like, Hannah, it's your house that burned down. It does say the address. You just didn't read the whole thing. And she's like, that's ridiculous. No, of course not. And then she's like, but my house. And then it's like no longer nice looking. It's all burnt out and gross and spooky looking. And she's like, what? No. And she tries to get in the house and Danny tries to stop her. And then Danny, like, I don't know if he goes through her or she goes right through him, like poof, but it's obvious she's the ghost. And the two realized that it wasn't Danny, but Hannah was the ghost into part 1. Watching this last night, this was the point I realized I was wrong. I had no idea she was the ghost.
What?
That's what I was coming back to. I was like, death, a likely story. Ableist much. But like if I saw it, it was so long ago that I don't remember it. I feel like I read the book and maybe just didn't watch the show, because I watched every episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, but Goosebumps was kind of hit or miss. It was like, if I got the book in, it was great. So whenever he's like, the article, that's when I was like, are you kidding me? I'm 40 and it's taken me almost 20 minutes to put all this together. But wait, there's more, because we go right into part 2.
You're telling me that Roseanne Lawrence Stein pulled one over on you?
Yeah.
That's in the nipples. I don't care.
And then part 2 starts, if like me and you're watching YouTube, and part 1 and 2 are back to back, and it's like right where we left off, and she's outside the burnt house, and she's like upset, but she's taking it pretty decent for finding out she's dead. And that's her house, but Danny, the synopsis says he panics and runs away. He looks more like he's mad at her for like lying to him. Like he does look a little freaked, but like in later scenes, he's like, I can't believe you were dead the whole time.
And I love earlier he even said, like, I like scary things, but will completely avoid her like the plague now.
Yeah, I love scary things. I can totally have a ghost for a best friend, but nah, I'm out of here. Nope on that. And so she goes inside her house, and it's like all charcoal and burned, which explains the smoke, the Chekhov smoke in the beginning. And she's like, this can't be happening. It can't be real, which the acting is why I'm saying she's taking it pretty decently for the fact she just learned she's dead.
This isn't really happening. It's not true.
But she does look at the rock that broke her window, and then like you're left to put together like, somebody threw it through the window because it's an old abandoned burned down house. They don't elaborate on it more. She's like, fine, I'm a ghost, and that's why I can't find my family, and I'm by myself. And then that's when the shadowy figure comes in. And he's like, Anna, I will always be here with you, and I've been trying to talk to you and didn't want to frighten you. And I'm like, yeah, you kind of did. Like, I mean, you spent most of the first episode being like, Hannah, like chasing after her. Like,
you'll never escape me.
And then she's like, why? And he's like, because I want to teach you to be a ghost. So it's like we're in ghost school now. So she's like, my teacher. It's like school. No. So like basically he's a tamed down version of the subway ghost from the movie Ghost, where
yes, that's what I was thinking the whole time.
Yeah, I'm like, this is the movie Ghost, but for kids. It's like, you have to concentrate. And it's like, you've been reliving it first of all, he's like, you've been living day after day in your own world. And she's like, why is it burned down? He's like, because you realize you're dead now. And she's like, but I want to go talk to Danny. And he's like, no. Like, immediately. Like, no, absolutely not. Talk to anybody else, not Danny.
No one can see you.
That's not true. Danny can see me.
Stay away from him. Danny Anderson is not your concern.
But he's my friend.
You no longer have any friends.
But she ignores the shadow and like runs to go meet Danny. And he's like, he wants nothing to do with it. He's like, I can't believe you lied to me. You're a ghost and you're dead. And or you're spooky, whatever. She looks completely normal. And then Hannah just like poofs through the door and is like, oh, that was cool. And goes in the kitchen. And Danny's like, ah! And he's like talking to her across the table. And meanwhile, the mom is like, I can't sign language, so I'm not even gonna try, but like is signing like, who are you talking to? What is happening? And he's like, nothing, Mom. I'm fine. I'm just talking to nobody. Leave me alone. Full on conversation. And they get into a huge argument. And then he's like, don't come back here anymore. And storms off, and then she storms off, knocks some papers over, and that's when the mom is like, oh. But she leaves, she goes back to the house, and she's like, Shadow, I'm ready to learn how to be a ghost. And the Shadow is like, finally, good. We're going to teach you to do a haunting. And we're going to, your first attempt is going to be on the mailman, and you must concentrate to pick up the objects. And like, she manages by concentrating and grabbing multiple times. She picks up a letter and makes it float in the air. And the mailman looks at it and it's just like, huh. It's not until she picks up the bag of mail that he's like, ghost. And she's like, oh, this is fun. I get to play pranks on people forever. But like, she's kind of still concerned, why can Danny see me and nobody else can see me? And every time she brings up Danny, the shadow figure is like, absolutely not, stay away from him. You know, you can do anything to anybody else, but not him. So later on, Danny brings the cyclist to the house and to tell them about Hannah. Of course, they don't believe him. And this is one of the time where they're just like, you're just not cool if you don't do this thing. Like, everybody's doing it. Whatever. I don't know. They say the most cliche bully things ever. And also, it was, I don't know if it was episode 1 or at this point that I realized they're Canadian. I'm sorry, but if you're going to do this, and I'm like, no, my mortal enemy's Canadians, because I love Canadians, but not Canadian actors, because if I'm up for a role and a Canadian is up for a role, they're going to hire the Canadian because tax benefits. So Canada. But every time somebody was like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, I love Canadians. I actually love Canadians. But if you're an actor, I will come for you. And I, as a shadowy figure, saying your name. Like, I'll be like, Canada.
Never be rid of me.
You will never be rid of me.
Can I go to that audition? Don't go to the audition.
And so like, they're like, if you want to be one of the coolest guys in town, you're going to have to go through an initiation. It's pretty extreme. It's a stink bomb, you know, and you're gonna pull this prank on the mailman. And Hannah is talking about Danny, like she's like going over the events that happened with Danny. And at some point, Danny like comes to her house and like almost gets killed. And it's the shadow's fault. Like something almost falls on him and the shadow's fault.
Falling bean, yes.
Yeah, and she like saves him, and she's like, he must see me because it's my like job as ghost to save him. And then that's when we find out that the shadow really doesn't care about teaching her cool ghosty tricks the whole time. He does a creepy thing where he turns his face into like uncanny valley Danny. And he's like, he's going to die, and I'm going to, it's kind of unclear. I don't know. He's going to take his form. Like at first I was like, is he trying to take his body? No. It seems like Danny's going to die and move on, but he's going to like assume Danny's ghost form for reasons.
It's poorly explained, but that's the gist I got too, was like he just wanted like his ghost form.
Because I rewound a couple times. I was like, or like went back a couple times. I was like, is it the body he's in for, or is, oh no, he is shapeless and formless. He is just a shadow. He actually needs like form.
It's Nightmare on Elm Street too. You got the body, I got the brain.
But the boys are at the mailman's house. They're waiting to play the prank, but like Danny's got to go in there with the stink bomb and like light it in the house. And he sneaks in there, and he's like trying to like light a match because it's the 90s. And the mailman, who's kind of like, I don't want to say he's dopey. He's not dopey. He's just very like good old boy, nice guy who would do this to him, which is different than the book. Danny hides in the closet, but what he doesn't realize is that like the match he dropped has like lit the floor on fire because it's the most like flammable carpet ever. And pretty soon the whole house is on fire, and he passes out, and the shadow figure outside is like, yes, good, finally, good, I can take his form. And Hannah's like, no, I'm gonna save him. And she goes in, but she's so frantic she can't concentrate enough to lift him. But then she's like, wait a minute, there was that one scene earlier in the episode where I was playing the piano really good. So she goes over to the piano and starts playing the piano. And then that people outside are like, wait, somebody's playing the piano. There must be somebody in there. And I think it's the mailman runs in there.
It was.
And he's like, little boy, oh no, who probably did this to my house? Let's get you out of here. And then he sees the piano playing by itself, and he's like, nope, and gets out of there. And Danny was, the whole shadow thing was Danny needed to die by midnight so he could assume his form. It is midnight. Danny is not dead. And the shadow's like, hello, and vanishes.
You lose!
No! I'll come back to that later. Danny's saved, but he's like, I can't see Hannah anymore, even though I know she saved me. Where did she go? And then just then Hannah's family comes out, and it's like, oh, silly, where have you been? Like, you can come with us now. We've been waiting on you. Oh, they don't say that, but like, they're the most bored ghost family ever. They're just like, good job, Hannah. Let's go.
Done a good job, honey. It's time to come home.
So she rejoins them, and Danny's just like, whoa. End of episode.
Okay, you guys have to come over to every single one of these verses just to do the episode, the stories, because that's so fun. I asked Joe what would he add to make it a two-parter. What would you change to make this one episode?
I just feel like there's a lot that could have been condensed, because like there was a lot with the shadow and the overly long 911 call. Like, I do appreciate that it was a two-parter. Like, I'm sure kids in the 90s, like those of us who watched that episode, were like, can't wait till next week. But I don't know. I just feel like there was a lot that happened that probably could have been just like pared down really nicely. But on the plus side, we got to really like flesh out the Danny Hannah relationship a little bit more, even though it was kind of weird because I like scary things. You're a ghost? No thanks.
Kevin, he's the guy who claims he's into goth girls and he realizes he can't handle a goth girl.
I was gonna say, if this was made today, even though they're 12, if this was made today, they'd fall in love and they'd be like true love's kiss before she vanishes into the afterlife. So I did kind of appreciate that it was just like buddies, like we're friends.
Totally platonic.
You don't see that much anymore.
To go along with our next category, main characters, we did talk a bit about them, obviously, through the story, but tell us, Joe, tell me about the main characters of Amanda and Beth for Lonely Ghost.
Well, I mean, they just have like Amanda and Beth being cousins who don't see each other very often. I think it's really heavily implied because they're like, oh, you girls used to be such best of friends when you were younger, and now they're like totally on two different opposite sides of the track now, socially speaking, in their little preteen teenage world. I feel like Amanda underacted and Beth overacted. I wish they kind of could have met in the middle a little bit. I feel like all the relationships in this, I'll go ahead and get this out of the way, all the relationships in this episode just felt very forced. Like I said, like unlike most Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes, or even specifically this Goosebumps episode, they're a lot more fleshed out than this episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark. But I will say, like, they knew the assignment going into it, and it made it very obvious that there are two cousins who don't know each other and they don't get along because of that.
Tell us about Hannah and Danny.
Hannah and Danny are, I like to think they're pretty fleshed out characters, as much as, pun intended, as much as they want them to be. You know, like, we don't need to know their entire backstory. There really isn't much of a backstory other than the whole being dead thing. But, you know, it's pretty much just girl who can't seem to understand why her family's not there. Young kid who just moved in next door, and he's a little embarrassed of, you know, because it's like, my mom doesn't really talk, and so it's gonna be kind of weird for you to come over. And we get to kind of see their friendship blossom, except for, I have to not call him this, I have to save it for later, but Mr. Shadow Man. I have a name for him that we'll say later, but she keeps getting their friendship keeps getting interrupted by Shadow Man, that, like, later is revealed to be trying to keep them apart. You know, the only people that don't really have a backstory are the bullies, who are just there to say after school special bullying lines.
And I gotta add, like, because I noticed it right away, the two bullies have, like, a direct connection to Nickelodeon movies.
Really?
Because lead bully, who's wearing the bowling shirt, he plays the best friend of the main guy on Snow Day. And the other bully, he is Purple Sock Boy in Harriet the Spy.
Well, Joe, tell us about the ghost characters for Lonely Ghost.
Just one ghost. Well, first off, she's adorable. Let's just get that out of the way. She's like adorable kid. I couldn't even be scared by that. I feel like everything was rushed in the episode. She's brought in a little bit, revealed fully a little bit too soon. I like other episodes like Dead Man's Float. It kind of like pulled a Jaws and just gave like hints about a ghost, hints about there being danger, and then the full reveal at the end. I wish they would have done a little more with that with her. I think she did fine as a character and as a young actress, because her character was not a threat at all. She never was the entire time. So honestly, like, the way they did it actually did work out, because now that I think about it more, if you're and especially if you're like in a house or an area you're not, you don't know that well yourself, and something like moves or spooks you, it's only creepy out, you're gonna run away. So seeing someone fully form in a mirror right in front of you, you're gonna run away. But no, like, I think it was great, because like once she got out of the mirror and walked towards her, you realize, okay, she's not a threat, and she played it off very well. She was like almost more playful than anything, which I really appreciated that.
Well, tell us about the ghost characters for Ghost Next Door.
Well, Hannah's a pretty cool ghost when she realizes she's a ghost. Mr. Shadow Guy is a terrible ghost.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's a good ghost. I don't know, depending on what you want to classify him as, because he like even says like, I'm nobody. I'm just a ghost. But like, he's like spends the whole first episode just trying to scare Hannah. And then at the second episode, she's like crying, and he's like, "Don't be sad, Hannah. I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to speak with you." And she's like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "What? I just want to teach you to be a ghost, to haunt people, to play tricks on people." And then this is like the one possible romantic thing that might be. She's like, "Haunt people like Danny?" And he's like, "No, not him." Because we find out later he wants Danny's face persona. I don't know. So it was kind of a mix of like ghost, but ghost you could relate to, because the ghost acted no different than a normal human girl. And then like shadowy ghosts that like kids picture when they think of ghosts. You know, like unformed shadow. Maybe that's why he wanted a face.
Well, Joe, tell us about the different relationships in Lonely Ghost.
I mean, the big ones were Amanda was kind of like the middleman between Nanny and the ghost girl. There wasn't like much of a relationship fleshed out between Amanda and Nanny. Like, they had like literally like two run-ins with each other the entire time. if that. Like they spoke like maybe 2 words to each other. You could tell like through like her reactions towards her, like Nanny was a character she could she felt like she trusted and felt sorry for, and maybe wanted to help out in a way because she's like she just seems so sad and whatnot. When she realized the little girl was the daughter of Nanny, she like really sprung into action to bring those two together. She was kind of like a conduit for that relationship, having a minor relationship with each of them herself. It was kind of weird to describe, but like that was like the strongest one that came through that like felt like genuine, and it was all due to like body language and facial reactions to each other that were really sold that as like a genuine relationship. The rest of it, like I said, overacting Canadians.
Kevin, tell us about the relationships for Ghost Next Door.
I mean, I think I've kind of touched on it a little bit, but like Hannah and Danny, they're friends, but it fleshes itself out much like an actual friendship would. Like, hey, I'm the new kid in town. Hey, I don't have any friends. Let's hang out. You helped me during a scary time. I helped you not get killed by the mailman. Like, they just kind of, aside from the being dead part, they just kind of like hang out and help each other, except for the shadow figure. But like had they continued to speak, it would be really crappy whenever Danny got older and she stayed a little kid, and then like we can't really hang out anymore. I've outgrown you. But he wraps it up really nicely, and she goes back to her family where she should have been all along anyway. So yeah, I feel like it had a lot more time to kind of flesh out their friendship. He's the one that helps her figure out she's dead. Yeah.
Right. And our last category, lasting appeal. So, Joe, how does this episode hold up by today's standards?
Honestly, like, despite the criticisms I have for it, pretty much any episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, minus a few things that like kind of like still showcase it being like in the late 80s, early 90s, almost all their episodes still hold up well because the production value of that show was just so ridiculously good for its time. It sets it apart from most shows during that time, especially kid programming. I mean, like even shows like Erie, Indiana, different shows like of the same genre that Are You Afraid of the Dark would fall into. Like it was just like I still watch it and I'm like, it doesn't feel too cheesy. Like they played it very serious. No matter like what the story's being told in Are You Afraid of the Dark, they always played it very serious and like they were doing a professional horror film. That's the way they viewed it. And so in my opinion, it holds up still well to this day, 30 years later.
Kevin?
It's because it's hokey. It's definitely for kids. It doesn't have, like Joe saying, that kind of like it's not taking itself as seriously as Michael Caine in a Muppet movie. It is the Muppet movie. No,
no. It's Tim Curry in a Muppet movie is what you're watching.
Or he thinks he's one of the Muppets. But that said, it does have that kind of epic storyline that has a very blatant beginning, middle, climactic ending, which is kind of what we've been conditioned to want, and like twists and turns all the time, that keep throwing us off course. Granted, in a kid's version way, my takeaway is that like based on what is popular in modern mainstream media, this kind of holds out because it has that kind of dynamic storyline that is never just one note. It's always something new, something, and it's got a genuinely kind of creepy, shadowy figure ghost. He doesn't sound creepy because he just talks like this and is like, I want to teach you to be a ghost and play ghost tricks, and but not around your friend. So I think that despite its silliness and cheesy bullies and whatever, there's friendship, there's overcoming hardships through friendship, and like having friends to get you through those tough times, even if it means you're dying or are dead, and how quickly those bonds can form, just over the course of a handful of days. When you're a kid in the summer, how many of us back when cell phones weren't really a thing, just kind of met somebody riding a bike and that was who we hung out with all day.
Alrighty. Well, I think we're going to take a quick commercial break for a moment. We've got our arguments in, even punching holes in our own episodes, which is hilarious to me. And we
You
will.
brought us on the show. I'm just saying.
Oh no, that's exactly what I was hoping for. And we'll see what all is going on in Splat Attack. We'll see what's going on with these two fellas, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. So don't go anywhere.
Are you afraid to snake? Don't be.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Splat Attack. If you are enjoying this ghostly versus, then hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, comment down below. If you're listening on a podcast app, please leave us a review. These very little things on your part leave a big impact on our afterlife. One of the things I enjoy most about this particular episode is I'm doing this with my friends, as if you couldn't tell from the camaraderie between all three of us, and we joke and banter and have a good time, and we do that also over on Patreon. Go to our Patreon, patreon.com/splatattack, where we get together with friends every so often. We do slime streams twice a month, and we commentate through the whole thing, very Mystery Science Theater 3000. Have a great time. Bonus minisodes that come out every Friday. We have early access to our episodes, as well as a few very special things that are going to be coming up very, very soon that you will not want to miss, I promise. So come check us out on patreon.com/splatattack.
The Ghostlight Experience. Welcome to the Ghostlight Experience, where Kevin, a tenacious community theater director, and Joe, the theater's diligent historian, embark on a daring investigation to delve into the mysterious origins and cursed history of a long-lost play while documenting their journey to produce it. Through a series of in-depth interviews and their own extensive investigations, what dark secrets and perilous obstacles will they confront in their quest to uncover the truth about the allegedly haunted play? Will they emerge unscathed, or will the chilling truth put everyone in the show in grave danger? The Ghostlight Experience can be listened on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Now, who needs a good laugh? Make sure that as you laugh, you pick the right door and you can go free, because we have t-shirts over on our Bonfire page, bonfire.com/store/splatattack store with hyphens in between for this very special Are You Afraid of the Dark Goosebumps battle. We have a Ghastly Grinner t-shirt, we have a Zebo t-shirt, and then we have the Stick Couch and our own slime tank, some Splat Attack original stuff, some really fun, sweet merch that you guys can wear or drink from. I would advise drinking from the coffee mugs because the shirts are not good filters. So go to our bonfire.com/store/Splat Attack store with hyphens in between to get your Splat Attack sweet merch. Our names may be similar, but we are not in charge, but we will be there for SplatCon in October 19th and 20th in LA at the Hilton LAX. Get your tickets today. Link down in the description. Use code ATTACK10 to get 10% off of your ticket sales, or put in ATTACK25 to get $25 off of your hotel bundle. We'll be there in October, and I hope you will too. Tune in next time, Slimesters, as we traverse the streets of Wellsville to rank every short from the Adventures of Pete and Pete. You will only catch all of the splatterific action here on Splat Attack.
Jump, Lofi. Jump. Now back to our show.
All right. Well, now we are back and we are ready to take a look and see which of these two episodes is going to take away the win. To go along with story, I was really trying to debate on which one I think has the best pacing, because the Lonely Ghost goes breakneck speed, and then Ghost Next Door is incredibly slow. You might be dead by the time it's over, but there's so much that happens in it. But I like the way Lonely Ghost is constructed, because there's a lot of little Easter eggs at the very beginning that pays off later. Yes, there is a plot holes, but there's plot holes in both of these episodes. But I feel like Lonely Ghost is better orchestrated. There's not a lot of fluff. You have what you need to tell the story in a very concise amount of time, which is what DJ McHale is known to do, because he has less time than most TV shows do. He has less time than a Goosebumps episode to tell a story because he has the Midnight Society bookending it. So there's even less. And speaking of, I like what they did with the Midnight Society in this also, because we didn't really talk about it very much, but David, the storyteller, was giving a locket as a birthday present to the characters, which was pretty sweet. It's slightly cheesy, but they don't play it up super cheesy. They play it fairly serious.
It felt genuine. It felt genuine.
I remember being a kid and being like, I wish somebody would give me a piece of jewelry like that. That'd be cool.
But whereas over on Ghost Next Door, the pacing was everywhere, which because there were moments where it was genuinely kind of creepy whenever she's outside and everything's getting distorted, and we never know why it was getting distorted. It never gets distorted again when she gets out of the house. I thought, yes, she's a ghost. I knew she was a ghost from the get-go. But whenever she goes outside, I thought, oh man, she's got to be tethered to the house. So it's going to be like Beetlejuice. She's outside in the sandworms, except it's going to be a little shadow that chases her. And until she goes back to the house, and now there's something else there. I mean, that's what I was expecting to happen, but that's not what happens. And we never see anything else like that for the rest of the episode. And at one moment it's super intense and creepy, and then it's just this blossoming friendship, and now a spooky ghost chase, and then bullies who are just completely messing with him. And by the way, that cracked me up when he crashed into the trash cans, because that is clearly an adult stunt double.
It was. Oh my gosh, I didn't think of that,
but I feel like there was too much going on for Ghost Next Door. We could have easily cut out a lot of the shadow stuff.
Oh gosh, let me teach you.
And that took such a shift. And I was thinking Ghost whenever he was teaching her how to do a haunting. And I'm really upset because it's been a decade since Patrick Swayze passed, and we still don't have Ghost 2. But
he would, if he could, he would make it too.
But I feel like the pacing was far more concise and put together for Are You Afraid of the Dark than Goosebumps. So as far as story goes, I'm going to give the point to Are You Afraid of the Dark. But as far as characters, both Amanda and Hannah, they're just good people. Like Joe had said earlier, for Amanda, very downplayed, easygoing. Most people could identify themselves as being either one of these characters, and they both want to help. There's not a whole lot of differences between these two characters. They both like the people around them. Even as far as Amanda and Beth goes, she's trying to avoid confrontation. She's just letting things go so that way she can get through the summer as easy as possible, and will appease to her just to stay on her good side, because she's insufferable as it is. But she's not meeting her at her own game. Then whenever she pieces together the ghost and Nana or Nanny, she's quick to, I've got to help right now. This has to happen right now. Now, yeah, like you had said, Joe, of all days for her to quit, it's got to be the one day that she goes over to find out and piece all this together. But she was adamant about it. And also, I really respect, and I'll get to this in a little bit as well, but I really respect her diligence, because that is a difficult thing to experience. It doesn't matter if it's somebody who you love or someone you've just met 10 minutes ago. When someone is that heartbroken about not wanting to go do something, and you have to go drag them to do this thing, that's tough to do, even for an adult. And the fact that Amanda she knows the payoff, and it hurts now, but it's going to be okay, at least I hope, by the end of this. that shows some diligence on her part, and I really like that. And the same goes for Hannah, because she was actually fighting the shadow. Now, she didn't physically fight, but she saw the beam and she protected, and she finally was able to use her ghost powers to push Danny out of the way, so that way the beam wouldn't hit him. And she's going out of her way to protect him. Whereas before, it was just, I'm a ghost. Why am I a ghost? Why can he hear me? Why can he see me? Oh, now he's in mortal danger. I had no idea he was in mortal danger before. And then she was very in the face of the shadow, which to a child, a shadow figure trying to kill your friend is freaking scary. Now the shadow is not a scary figure to us now, but can you imagine being 11 years old and coming face to face with this thing, and it's trying to kill a friend of yours, a new friend of yours? So I really like both of these characters, and going along with Beth and with Danny, Beth is just like Joe had said earlier, she's just the stereotypical bully. But also, if you didn't have this bully, you wouldn't have the trope to go into the house and do all these things. And also, I really like the fact that she didn't try to usurp Amanda again once she became, Queen Bee. She's like, okay, yeah, I was awful and I'm sorry. And then that really resolved everything, because I like that it didn't go to a big confrontation. I didn't like that it go to a big fight. It was just a conversation. They experienced this thing, they talked it out in front of friends, there were witnesses, and then they could just enjoy the summer. It's wrapped up super quick for the show, but those things happen. They genuinely happen, and I liked that. And Danny, yes, we poked fun at the fact that he was like, I like scary things. Oh, a ghost! How dare you not tell me you were a ghost? But friendships are like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what age you are. Friends get mad at each other over the dumbest things, and then they get hurt over the silliest things. But then they come right back and they're like, you know what, that was really stupid, I'm sorry. Or they might not even apologize at all. They may just, hi, how you doing? And keep on going like nothing ever happened, like George Costanza. But that relationship is a very believable relationship. And like Kevin, you had said earlier, you don't really see platonic friendships, especially of the opposite sex, or hell, even in any relationship now.
Right, yeah.
I like that it was just a platonic friends, and they were sticking up for each other and trying to help each other. I like that. The relationships are very, very similar. One was a bully, one was brand new friends, but there's still a lot of relatability. Not a whole lot of differences in the main character themselves. So I'm going for a tie for characters. Ghost figures, the little girl for Lonely Ghost, like Joe had said, she was just cute. And yes, that would have been terrifying if I was in an abandoned house that I knew a child died in, and I have to sleep in her room because that was my task, to be able to be in the initiation so I could hang out with my cousin for the rest of the summer and her friends. That would be terrifying. I walked around an abandoned house, not in it, and it was already eerie. Imagine being in it where you know somebody died, and then you see a figure in the mirror, and I'm done. I'm out. I'm just glad it said, help me, and not red rum on the wall. She was cute, and then once she comes out, and she was very
trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.
She's an intimidating appearance at first, but then you get to see it's just a kid, and she's by herself, and lonely ghost, and I really like that. And I also like that it's one of the Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes where the supernatural being is not evil, because most episodes they are. And I like that she was just a normal kid who had this horrible thing happen, and now she's lonely and she wants mom. And that has got to suck, to know that mom is over there and I can't get to her.
it reminded me of the Tale of the Red Bike, because that one very similar. Like, it was spooky, very spooky. Then it's like, oh, he's just trying to help his friend. You know, I mean, it's very similar in that aspect.
And as far as Ghost Next Door goes, I think Hannah is fantastic because she has more time. The Lonely Ghost doesn't have a whole lot of time. Hannah is the ghost, and she is the main character. And the shadow figure, I'm hit and miss. The first episode, I liked him
because he was mysterious.
Yeah, he was super mysterious and he was creepy, and just shows up in the basement and is chasing her through the doors and all these things. That image is really creepy, and it wasn't played up super hammy and cheesy like most Goosebumps episodes are. And then they went full horror land part 2, and then just went complete flip the script, and now he's not scary anymore. He's, I didn't want to scare you. Oh, give me a break. And I'm gonna teach you all these things. Okay, you've lost every bit of intimidation factor that this character has had. And then the whole, oh no, you can't, anybody but Danny. It's like, no, now you're just, this is stupid. This character has become stupid. He was a great antagonist, and now it's just a run-of-the-mill bully that just has no corporeal form. I'm still going to give a tie to both, because I love the little girl, and I would have given the win clearly to Hannah, but the shadow has kind of put a big damper on that. So I'm like, okay, I gotta give it to both. So point to the two of them. Relationships. There's like 3 major relationships on the Ghost Next Door, because there's Hannah and Danny, which again we already established is very much like a real relationship, even though it's played up goofy. It still has all that. But then Hannah and the Shadow, it goes from very much frenemies for most of the 2 parts, and it's not. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all, especially for the type of tale that they're trying to go with. And then you have Danny and the bullies, and that's just stupid too. Because Danny, I don't understand why Danny would want to be part of these kids. They're like the only other kids on the block. Why would you want to even hang out with these morons? Just leave them alone. Go do your own thing. Go hang out with your ghost friend. That's far cooler than, anybody else that's alive on the block right now. So those 2 relationships really took a lot out for me as far as this category goes. But as far as Lonely Ghost goes, yes, there is that overacting character personas. One being very laid back, one just all in your face angry. But what sells it for me is Nanny and the Lonely Ghost. I know it's rushed, but there is some genuine emotion and genuine heart in both of these portrayals. I don't know if you guys do, but I really bought these 2 as mother and daughter at some point.
I legitimately got a little teary, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and she played it. That actress who played the nanny, she did such a great job. I can't go in there. It's too hard for me. I can't go. And I get that. I mean, there are things, I'm sure all of us have been through some experience where I don't ever want to go back to that place ever again because of the memories that are there, and they're too difficult. Everyone has got something like that.
I mean, quick brief fact, my dad didn't even find out he had an older sister until he was 12, because my grandfather was in World War II, and the one and only time he ever drank alcohol in his life, he got a call the next day that my aunt, I guess, had died of diphtheria. And he, even though we know that this is not true, he believed that it was some kind of divine punishment, and he just metaphorically and literally buried her, like took all of her photos down, locked them all away in a box. Like, even when grandpa died, Dad at that point knew he had a sister, but we found boxes of colorized photos of her that he's like, I didn't know these existed. He's like, I knew Dad was all about no, I can't go there, I don't want to deal with that emotion, but he's like, I didn't think it was this bad.
Yeah, it's real. People experience that kind of thing, and I think just those few minutes from the moment she established connection with Nanny, dragged her to the room, she saw the daughter, went into the mirror, and then quite literally happily ever after for Nanny and the little girl, that sells this episode. And not only that, but it is one of the most powerful genuine relationships you'll ever see in the history of Are You Afraid of the Dark. I mean, they don't really pull relationships like that and so quick and so powerful in many episodes. So I've got to give the win for Lonely Ghost in that one. But lasting appeal, again, we talked about this earlier. Do you want Sam Raimi or do you want John Carpenter? Because
I want John Carpenter every time.
they are two very, very different styles. As a kid, I would have wanted Sam Raimi. As an adult, I want John Carpenter. But they're both still very fun to today's audience. One is very serious. One is mostly serious and then gets really goofy and then back to serious again. It ends serious. And they're both perfectly enjoyable today and still have a lot of heart in both of them, a good story. I've got to give it a tie for lasting appeal, which gives a final count of Lonely Ghost with 5 points and Ghost Next Door with 3, which gives the win to Joe. Yeah.
Even though Joe hated it.
I didn't hate it. I was just like, I was severely critical on it because I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I don't want to be picking this apart, but I just can't help it right now.
I do. I mean, like that episode gave me the creeps as a kid, but even rewatching it, I'm like, where did Nanny come from? Why is she?
I mean, it's just like a lot of unexplained stuff. It's really fast, but like this one hit me different as an adult because, like we were talking about the relationship between the mother and daughter, it hit me harder as an adult than it would have hit me as a kid. Honestly, that last scene was really beautiful, albeit confusing, but beautiful.
Well, we've got 2 segments for you guys. We're going to breeze through these real quick, starting with rename games. So roll the jingle. All right, rename game. This is exclusive to our Versus episodes, and this one it's pretty self-explanatory. If we had to rename these episodes, what would we call them? Joe, what would you call the Tale of the Lonely Ghost?
That would be the tale of I'm in a glass case of emotion. That's my Hollywood Square answer. If I thought like that was the first thing I'm like, they're in a glass case of emotion because they're in a mirror. I was thinking about, I'm like, what would it like? All I was thinking was if I could like twist it and give this like a B movie kind of name. I thought of the name Spectre Reflector.
That's actually a legit cool name.
I like that.
Well, then mine's dumb. Mine was just like.
What'd you think?
The Tale of Nanny McFreemy.
I love that.
Kevin, that is genius. You win.
I was like, I'm trying to think of funny things.
No, that's great.
Perfect.
That is great.
That is
I didn't think of one nearly as clever.
You win.
Mine was the only one I could think of was just the Tale of the Magic Mirror. I thought Lonely Ghost was too perfect of a title, but I struggled with coming up with one for this one. But that, yes, Nanny McFreemy is. I don't care what the everybody on Instagram polls for. That's my favorite. But I love Spectre Reflector.
I'm voting for that one right now. I don't care.
Well, Joe, what would you call the Ghost Next Door?
Canadian Shadow and the albino bowl cut. Danny with his albino bowl cut. I'm sorry.
And Kevin, what do you call the Ghost Next Door?
I've been waiting for this the whole episode. My whole theory is that this entire episode is a prequel to a very well-known franchise. So I'm calling it Captain Howdy, The Beginning. it's a prequel to The Exorcist. The shadow gets so mad at this smart girl that he goes back in time and is like, girl with a Ouija board, got this one. Like, nobody's gonna stop me now.
Reagan.
I was like, he's just mad and disappears. And I'm like, I think I even mentioned in a message, I was like, this is as close to like demon storyline as they're ever gonna get in any of these things, because he's not a ghost. He's an entity, a dark, shadowy entity that wants to take over somebody.
That lays into my whole theory. My whole theory was that actually the shadow is a demon, because if you go by, and I hate the man I'm about to reference, but Ed Warren, if you go by his classification, a ghost is someone who walked as an earthly entity. A demon is something of another realm that never walked on Earth as a earthly entity. So it would make sense that he wants to steal the ghostly body of a former human.
And the other title I had was very simply just Shadow Wants a Body.
Shadow Wants a Body. I mean, it's the truth.
It really is.
So, again, we are going to go through all of these. Well, I should say we'll put all of these titles in a poll on Instagram. So everybody vote for which one of these you like the best, and we'll see which one win. And we do have one more segment. This is our first time doing this segment. We had talked about it at the season overview at the end of last season, so I'm excited about this one. So let's tune in to Tuned In. Tuned In. So Tuned In is if we could pick any song, if it exists and you can find it on YouTube or Spotify or anywhere, if you could pick one song to be an unofficial theme for either of these episodes, what would it be? I'm really excited about my two, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna start with you guys first. Joe, what is the song that you would pick for The Tale of the Lonely Ghost?
Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson.
Ooh, it's a good one.
That's my Hollywood Square answer. My real answer is...
That's great, though.
Thank you. The Ghost of You by My Chemical Romance.
My Chemical Romance. I've actually, I don't know if I've ever heard any My Chemical Romance.
I love MCR.
What'd you say, Kevin?
You would hate them, Alex.
I'm sure I would.
You would.
I'm sure I would.
So
See,
much.
These guys, they know me. I rock and metal through and through. That's it. If it's not that, I'll go live it. But
it's just it's emo rock. So,
Kevin, what? And I know before we get to this, Kevin was saying at the beginning of the episode before we started, like, oh, I don't know, I'm not good with picking songs for these kinds of things. So, Kevin, what would you pick for Lonely Ghost?
Okay, so not that I condone this person at all. R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet.
The one that I picked is Alice Cooper's This House is Haunted, which is kind of a deep cut, but it's about a human who wants to continue his relationship with his girlfriend, who is a ghost, which very much reminds me of this, where a human and a ghost are trying to stay close, and it's eerie and beautiful at the same time. But for The Ghost Next Door, Joe, what would you call that one? Or what song would you pick for that one?
The theme song from Perfect Strangers.
Is that your Hollywood Squares answer?
Yes, it is. My real answer is a song called Shadow Moses by Bring Me the Horizon. And if you listen to it, like the... Stop scoffing, Kevin. Like the lyrics... Like the lyrics and everything, they kind of match up with like some of the stuff going on, plus like the shadow intertwinement as well.
Kevin, what about you?
Didn't Pat Benatar have a song called Shadows in the Night?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the song I picked was Avenged Sevenfold's Afterlife.
So you're using like songs that have like real lyrical meaning to them.
Yeah, and that one, dude went to heaven and realized that there are still things that he needs to do on Earth, and that was very much what happened with our lead character. So there are, and we'll do the same thing. I'll put these up on Instagram and have all of you vote for which one of these you would pick for these episodes, and we'll see which one is the most liked. That is going to be it for Tuned In. I hope you guys like that segment. I'm looking forward to those. But wrapping up the episode, we have our closing question for the day. And our closing question for this episode is, what is your favorite ghost story in pop culture? Movie, TV show. Gerald from Hey Arnold, tell us what your favorite ghost story is. Write to us via email at splatattack2021@gmail.com. You can DM us on all of our socials. Just look for Splat Attack Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you have, yay, thank you. Interact with us wherever you can. We're always happy to hear from you guys because you guys are awesome. But that being said, thank you so much to both of you for joining me for this episode while my team continues to work hard to get the studio finished. It is always a lot of fun hanging out with you guys just all the time. And I love sharing stories with you. So thank you guys for being here.
No problem.
Until next time, will you guys help me build the studio, please? We only have a few episodes left before the end of the season, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done.
I mean, I built a few sets before, so I can like paint some walls.
I'm good for archiving, so I can scrap together some old gold plaques and it'll make the studio walls look a little bit more nice.
Yeah.
Dude, you guys are awesome. This studio is going to be sight to see next season. Yeah, all you Slimesters are in for a treat. So thank you guys for your help. And as for all of you Slimesters, we'll splat you later.
Should we do a bonus episode where me and Kevin dress as these bullies and do the lines?
Okay, we've decided to give you one more chance to prove yourself worthy of hanging out with us. The coolest guys in town. Like, are you ready? And he's like, oh no, guys. And it's like, hey, this is a one-time only offer. Why does my boy sound like a Valley girl but in a guy?